Great, that appears to be it. That's what you're looking for, Mr. Cross.
That is it. Perfect. Okay, you can
Okay,
see this
one
document.
second, let me mark my document, my
course,
page,
Judge.
let
Let me
me
know
know
when you're
what it
ready.
is I'm looking at for my notes. It's correspondence, Exhibit 12 in the revised documents, and it's page 170. Go ahead.
Great. So I'm going to go down, and you understand this to be a series of questions and answers from the Internal Affairs investigators to Warden Novak, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm looking here, and the question is, okay, were you made aware of any issues with the fence since the time you started at Columbia? And her answer is, I was told one time in passing that the electronic fence was placed on the wrong side. You see that?
Judge, he's trying to get Miss Novak's statements in without Miss Novak. I don't understand how the secretary can answer these questions. He's already stated that he hasn't seen this document or he doesn't recall seeing it. I'm just not sure how this is proper.
Okay, I'm not going to get the statement in. I'm not going to allow this part in because it is an attempt to do that. I'm allowing him to ask this written questions at this point. So do you ever recall being told, let me see, that Warden Novak said that she knew one time about the issue with the fence in passing?
I don't recall ever being told that she
Okay.
said that.
Okay, let's
Okay,
move
can I
on.
ask my question now?
If you can ask it in a way that can be answered.
Okay. Do you see this here where it says, okay, who brought that up to you? And she says, Deputy Warden Weber. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you know who Deputy Warden Weber is?
Yes.
Was he the deputy warden at that time or some other time?
At that time.
Okay. And then she says, and I want to say it was 86 or something back then. Now, based on your testimony earlier, I understood you to say that you saw a report that said when this fence was actually installed, correct?
No, I don't recall saying that I saw anything that told me exactly when it was installed. My recollection is that I had heard that it had been in that state for a number of years. I've never said I knew when it was installed.
Okay, a number of years. So seeing this here, does this help refresh your recollection about what a number of years is?
If this is accurate, I have no way of knowing if where it says, and I want to say it was 86 or something back then. What does that mean?
Sure. My question I'm not asking you if you believe that Warden Novak's statement was accurate. My question to you is, does this statement here, does that refresh your recollection about what you recall when you viewed the reports and on the investigation and to the status of the fence?
No.
No. Okay. Do you believe that it was, does it just, do you have any reason to believe that 1986 is inaccurate when the fence was installed?
I have no idea.
Okay. Now,
I'm stopping
again,
sharing.
yeah, we're done with that. Thank you, Judge. We are, you said that you reviewed discipline for others other than Warden Novak involving this fence, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And were those other employees in a position, or I guess put it another way, if a line employee, how would a line employee, for example, get that fence repaired?
I think earlier I stated that they wouldn't have the ability to. What they would have an obligation to do would be to notify their supervisor that there was some malfunction or something that wasn't right or something that needed repair, and then it go up the chain of command to the proper person that could institute or start to address the issue.
Okay. But if if there's, I mean, is there a dispute whether or not it was installed as far back as 86?
Objection. He said he doesn't remember or doesn't know.
Sustained.
So, if it had been installed in that manner for more than 40 years, it would also be the case that there would have been at least 40 years of worth of employees who, for which there was no action to take to correct that situation, right?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
Can you say again? I didn't hear that whole long question.
Sure. Okay, because you instructed, and I want to be clear, you instructed the internal affairs to follow all the leads, right?
Yes.
Okay, so based on your understanding of how far back that fence was, and I guess the only thing that you're able to tell us is that it's a number of years, right?
That's my understanding.
Did you go back to the warden who was there before Sue Novak and discipline that person?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained.
Well, what limits did you put on? How far back did you go, sir?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
I don't know that he didn't even say he looked into Sue Novak.
No, Judge.
The
He had
affairs
those,
to do
he had those
their
facts.
investigation.
He had those facts from other investigations, and he's admitted that he's read the disciplinary summaries at least for all of those other investigations. So, sir,
Yes,
let me
but
ask,
he said he was reading them, I believe. Well, let's just ask him again.
let's ask you, sir, how many
Secretary
disciplinary?
Carr, Secretary Carr, when did you read those reports that we're talking about, these disciplinary action reports?
For the individuals that were brought before me for a disciplinary decision, I generally read their materials within several days prior to making the decision.
And were those decisions made before or after Warden Novak retired?
I don't recall. I really don't recall the exact dates.
And do you recall if any of those disciplinary documents you read from these other employees included information about activities by Warden Novak?
Pardon my delay. I'm just trying to recall. That was 3 years ago. I'm trying to. What you're asking is did any of those other matters say that Warden Novak mentioned Warden Novak and say that she either knew or didn't do something, or is that what you're getting at?
Yes, did you get any indication from these other reports there was a problem with Warden Novak and the fence issue?
Possibly.
Okay, but you don't remember now.
But I don't remember specifically, but yeah, and I don't want to engage in conjecture.
That's fine. Okay, let's move on, Mr. Cross.
Okay. So in your role as Secretary of the Department of Corrections, have you settled any lawsuits regarding this issue with the fence?
Objection. Relevance.
Is the relevance?
Well, it's my understanding that he settled lawsuits with these other employees who were disciplined regarding this fence. So I'm trying to find out if he came to have knowledge of the situation of those facts when he made those settlement agreements.
Well, first of all, it assumes that there's lawsuits as opposed to an administrative hearing. It's not relevant, but I guess at that point, I would also object to the form of the question.
Okay, I don't see this as relevant. We're not going into it. Move on.
Okay. Other than in the disciplinary packets, did you ever come to review the facts about this fence at any time?
I think I stated earlier that in the after action report, which was not the same as the internal affairs investigative reports, there were, issues about the fence that were reported in that document.
When did you receive that report?
I think earlier I said I don't recall when, but it was probably in the summer of 2020.
Okay. Was that before or after you started the disciplinary investigation?
Oh, it would have definitely been after the disciplinary investigation started back in April, right after the escape took place.
Okay. So then, based on that information that you had at that time, or have had, and the after action report, who do you believe was responsible for and I guess during the escape, the fact that the fence was installed backwards?
Objection, relevance, lacks personal knowledge.
Could you say the question again, please?
Sure. Based on your review of that report, after action report, and your position as the Secretary of the Department of Corrections, who do you believe was responsible at the time of the escape for the fence being installed backwards?
Okay,
Again,
with that knowledge, no, I'm not going to allow that unless you ask a foundational question regarding if it had any factor in the decision made regarding Ms. Novak. Warden, any decision regarding Warden Novak.
Well, but so Judge, I get what what you're trying to do, and I'm not trying to put it in that framework of that there's a bias or like that. But what I'm saying is the issue with this question and where I'm trying to go is that it doesn't matter if he knew it before or after she resigned, and the reason is because we're trying to find out why the investigation didn't go above the level of warden. So if he then finds out later that, for example, Doug Percy is responsible or somebody else is responsible, then we would expect that there would be discipline for that person.
Okay,
Based
so
again on his
Secretary
statements here,
Carr,
excuse me,
Secretary Carr, I think the question is was there any information provided to you to make you believe that Mr. Percy, I believe is his name, was somehow involved in the failure to fix this fence?
No information of that kind was ever provided to me.
Okay, so let's move on.
did you ask for it?
Object to the form of the question. He's asking him if he wasn't aware of it, so why would he ask about something he's not aware of? I'm objecting to that.
Yes, and it's not consistent with this other testimony, so no.
Judge, this not consistent with this other testimony is a flawed theory because that's what impeachment is all about. So if he says something that's false to begin with, then we don't have to just stick with the assumption that that statement is true.
You don't have anything to impeach him with, so no, we're not doing that unless you do.
Well,
move on.
I guess we're back to Bowen then. I guess we're back
again,
to proof
I am
of,
not.
yeah, aren't we?
Continuing objection. with your belief that anything should be let in because it's an administrative proceeding and that I shouldn't exclude anything. No, we're not doing that. We would be here for 20 years. We are not doing that.
Because that's not the rule, Judge. What we're talking about here is that if you're making an evidentiary rule without at least either having fact on the record or allowing me to not make an offer of proof, that's an example of bias. And that's something that we've been through.
2 or 3 sentences, I'll let you make an offer of proof, but I am not going to let you go on for 20 minutes like you have a tendency to do. So you got a few short answers? Go ahead.
Well, but again, the last time we did that, well, I think we're all clear then. Okay, I got it.
Few sentences,
I got it. I got it. So, Mr. Percy, well, let's be clear then. Secretary Carr, aren't you ultimately responsible for the condition of that fence?
Objection. He testified he wasn't aware of the nature of the fence.
He also testified that ultimately he's responsible for everything that happens at the Department of Corrections. So did you want him to reprimand himself and fire himself? Is that what you wanted? I'm not quite sure where you're going with this, Mr. Carr.
Well, that's correct.
That's always the truth in a big organization.
Okay, and so then going down from there, Mac DeFesai is also responsible for that fence, right?
If they knew
Objection.
about
Form of the question.
If they knew about it. Okay, so again, following that logic, anybody who knows about the condition of the fence should be disciplined, correct?
Objection mischaracterizes his testimony. He said that line staff and others were not responsible and they were not able to even make fixes to the fence.
He's also just said that anybody who knew about it had any conditions. So, sir, I guess we're just sort of having Mr. Mullenbach testify for you, but I'll go on to my next question, which is, what steps did you take to find out whether Mac DeFesai knew about the condition of the fence?
Again, same objection that I had with Doug Percy.
I don't remember what your objection is anymore, Mr.
The objection is he wasn't aware of whether or not Ms. Makta had knowledge of it. So why would he ask her about whether she knew?
Okay, so let's go back to Secretary Carr. Secretary Carr, were you aware of anyone like Mr. Percy or I'm sorry, what is her last name again? I can't say it right.
That's a high.
Ms. Hyde, were knowledgeable of the fence issue before the prison break?
No.
Okay, let's go on.
Okay. So that also means that you took no steps to determine whether or not they knew or didn't know, correct?
That would be the function of the internal affairs investigation to determine who knew what, when, and what did they do about it.
Okay, but with your feedback, correct?
To a very limited extent. Again, like I said, my practice is not to put my thumb on the scale of any investigations and let them take the course that they take, and where the facts lead, they lead. And if they had led to Mr. Percy or Administrator Fesahaya, then that's where they would have led. But to my knowledge, they did not.
Okay, so let's go on to that aspect of things then. And again, the problem with that answer is when you say to your knowledge they did not, you aren't able to tell us how you know that, right?
I'm going to object. That question is actually argumentative. It doesn't seem like it's a real question. He's just trying to get information out there.
Okay. I think Secretary Carr is telling us what he believes is the answer to your questions. Some of these questions are very difficult, especially all these years later. So if you have a specific question, you want to direct him to something, fine. in
Okay.
terms of like a report or something else, but I'm not going to just let you continue this way. He's told you he doesn't believe that he has that information and he didn't get that information. So let's move on.
Okay, so the installed fence wasn't the reverse installed fence that the Department of Corrections, although you weren't aware of, was aware of, was not the only issue was that led to the escape, right?
That's correct.
The inmates had help, didn't they?
Yes,
Okay. And where did they receive help from?
from a food service worker.
Oh, okay. And prior to the escape, was there any indication that there was a problem with that food service worker?
My recollection is that the management team at CCI had some indications that there was something going on with that particular employee. And they had knowledge of that prior to the escape.
Okay, who do you mean by management? Well, let's put it another way. By management team, you meant Warden Novak, right?
Well, that would be her, the Deputy Warden Weber, and Security Director Gutsky.
Okay. And she didn't keep that information to herself, did she?
I don't recall.
She reported it up to management, didn't she?
I don't recall. I mean, that what I just stated is what I recall about that situation. About
Excuse me, stop. She did not call attention to this. I don't know. There was a she. I don't know who the she is. So unless you're going to identify who the she is in the question, I don't know if you're on the same page and what we're talking about.
I appreciate that, and I always strive for clarity. So, to be clear, sir, Warden Novak told Doug Percy about this issue with the food service worker before the escape, correct?
I don't know. I don't recall.
Okay. And you never discussed that with Internal Affairs, correct?
I don't recall having that conversation.
Okay. Did you discuss with Doug Percy at all with Internal Affairs?
Did I discuss Doug Percy
With regard to this escape, yeah.
I don't recall.
Okay. Did you discuss anybody on the management above the warden level with Internal Affairs?
Did I discuss what? Sir, could you please repeat the question?
Sure. Did you discuss anybody above the rank of warden with Internal Affairs regarding the escape?
Regarding the escape? At some point, probably yes.
Okay. What was that discussion?
I don't recall, but it would only make sense to me that as the investigation was proceeding and I was being updated on it, you know, various individuals who were being identified in the investigation would be brought to my attention. And whether it's a line staff that we didn't know had anything to do with it, and then all of a sudden the investigation pointed in that direction, or a management person, anybody that ended up having something to do with the investigation at some point would be brought to my attention. I mean, that's just the way things are done.
Okay. So Doug Percy would have been brought to your attention, but you don't recall. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. And then even though, I guess let's put it another way. were you aware of any time of any allegations made by,
Excuse me, Judge, I got something going on with my computer, and there's something that's gonna try to reboot
Oh,
in 9 minutes. I
can
didn't do
you
it.
hit, there says, sometimes it says an hour, you can delay it an hour. Can you
Right,
see
yeah,
there's a
but
time frame?
it's not giving me that option.
Okay,
You know, that Avanti thing that pops up from time to
yes, I
time?
know, but it
Yeah.
usually lets you delay it for a
Right.
certain amount of time. Did you click, is there a down arrow
No,
on
there
that?
there is no option for me to do that.
Okay, well, then let's,
No,
we'll
no,
just
if
take
it
a break.
happens, if it,
No, we're gonna take a break.
no,
We
no,
could
I
take
don't
a
know if it's
break
gonna kick
now.
me off or not, you know?
It's going to, it's going to reboot on you. So what we're gonna do is, I'm actually gonna close this whole thing and reboot myself in case I also was told we're supposed to get some kind of update today. But they said it might not affect me, but we'll all just close down and then reboot and come back in about another 10 minutes. Just take another 10-minute break so that we can all be sure we have, and try rebooting more than once, Secretary, because sometimes you got to do a reboot
All
more
right,
than
because I'm gonna
once.
press the reboot now button then, and,
great.
No, yeah, well, go ahead, but why don't you just get out of this thing, get out of WebEx first, and then we'll do it. And the rest of us are going to close up, okay?
all
We'll
right.
just stop. Okay, take a break, everybody. You'll have to join back in later.